Welcome back to part 4 of another fanfiction of What If Jiraiya brought Tayuya with Naruto on their training trip. Naruto X Tayuya. Please make sure to like and subscribe as it motivates me to upload more in the future, and as always link to the fanfiction is in the description. 16. Letter to the Hokage. Tsunade read and reread the bingo book again and again, hardly believing what she was seeing. Naruto, wanted by Kumo, and using Shikuden. How many people have seen this? Tsunade asked, dreading the answer. Shizune whimpered, Ruruka and I had already passed them out to the clans and Anbu forces before reading them. Kakashi sighed from his seat, then that means we should be hearing about it any minute, now. He said, before popping open his favorite copy of Ika Ika, Paradise. And he was right. Not a moment later, one Hiashi Hyuga came storming into the office, holding a copy of the Bing book. Hokage-sama, have you seen this new page in the books? He asked, an edge in his voice sharp as a knife. There seems to be a boy on your former comrade's team that has my family's Kekkei Genkei. Tsunade kept her voice low as she sighed, showing him her copy. So it would seem, Hiashi-san. Hiashi felt his left eye twitch. Did you know? I deemed it an S-rank secret. She relented with a nod, but since the cat's out of the bag, I don't see any reason in lying about it. She placed the book on the desk and gestured for the man to sit, which he did heavily, running his hand over his face. I realize what this must put you through as the clan head, but the boy is in no relation to you, or the Hyuga, a distant relative, perhaps, but certainly not close. Hiashi sighed, I will be frank with you, my lady, this is going to cause a clusterfuck with the clan. Tsunade raised a brow at the man's crass language, but allowed it, seeing as the Hyuga elders were, well. I am at a loss. I know that he is the reason Neji has been on edge now, and that you have sent him off to train the boy, which means, when he returns, his mission will be known to the clan, and the elders will execute him without hesitation. Kakashi groaned, Tenten-chan isn't going to like that at all, he said, closing his book. We can probably get away with lying about the mission report, but not for long. Or we could classify his latest mission as S-rank, considering what he must have went through this past week. Tsunade nodded. What's more, Naruto's use of Shikuden is going to make the council members want him back for breeding stock, right along with little Rinmara. Disgusting, Hiashi mumbled, it seems we are both plagued by our elders. Before the blonde could agree, Anko, without even a knock, came bustling through the door, and spotted both Hiashi's and Tsunade's books. Well, looks like you know. Both nodded, making her smile widely as she sauntered over to Kakashi and plopped down in his lap, making him blush underneath his mask. Then I've got a little something you might like to brighten things up. She pulled a scroll out of her coat, and handed it to Tsunade. Jiraiya sent this view messenger bird from a little village just outside of Kumo territory. Seems our old friend, I's been a naughty little boy. Tsunade and Hiashi gave the woman a look as the blonde unfurled the scroll and began to read. Oh, dear Kami, she breathed out, slumping over in her seat. Hiashi looked up at the scroll. Ah, so that's why the bounty was so high for the child. He said, those fools have been after the Byakugan for years, and this was dangerously close. Yes, Tsunade said, taking the scroll up again, we were damned lucky. Not only did Naruto save him, but those new abilities of his aided him in eliminating half a battalion of Ai's men. And one Jiden user that was in the bingo books as a B+ rank. Naoko's going to make that boy very rich. Kakashi, shifting a giggling Anko in his lap, leaned over to get a look for himself. Well, this is interesting, he began reading. After we got out of Kumo, we headed for the nearest village so we could rest and recover. Naruto and Neji's chakra network took quite a bit of strain from their new techniques. If you've just gotten this within the week, then you should know that Naruto is now a Shikuden user. Strange as it seems, I found out from the Kyuubi, through Naruto, that this wasn't the Kekkei Genkei. How is that possible? Hiashi asked. I thought Shikuden was nearly impossible to find, let alone create on one's own. It explains here, Tsunade said, taking over. When it was explained, I found that Naruto's body was altered so that his chakra system could support all 5 elements of chakra, and, with a little training, combine certain elements to create others. Kyuubi explained that, long before shinobi villagers or even clans were established, that some shinobi were disciplined in their control to such an extent, that they could create new elements, such as Shikuden. Later, as this skill was taught to others, and families were formed, unique traits were passed. Since both parents possessed control of the new element, a child was born capable of natural control of it. Thus beginning the elemental Kekkei Genkai. Hiashi sat back and thought, that makes a lot of sense. Most of the Kekkei Genkai that were so sought after were elementals because they were so rare after the Second War, and now they're all but extinct. I wonder if this skill can be taught. What else does Jiraiya-sama have to say? Shizune asked in interest. Tsunade continued, as I'm sure you're wondering, the answer is yes, this can be taught. Naruto is already working on perfecting his Shikuden skills, as well as coaching Tayuya in what do about combining the elements, which she's finding difficult but doable. Naruto's not having much luck either. During the battle, the Kyuubi was helping him with the control, and he was facing off against the Hachibi no Jinchuriki. Without the Kyuubi's help, he's back to square one, only able to use one or two weaker moves which coincide with his taijutsu. As it stands, he could easily master the technique with the aid of his Kage Bushins, which he's been using like a plague sweeping through a village. He's determined to get this down so he can move on to the next element. Though Kyuubi seems to be coaching him, it's still hard on him seeing as he has abysmal control over his chakra. We're working on that as we speak. We've come across a particular seal that could actually restrain the amount of chakra he uses to give him better control. I say restrain because that's the name of the seal, Oseru no Fuen, or restriction sealing method. It's simple, and I've applied it to all of the Gakis Nejian included, and I've seen one hell of an improvement already. Naruto's not using half the chakra he normally uses for jutsu, or his clones. This simple seal, I think, is what made the Uzumaki so damn frightening. They had massive chakra reserves, too much for simple techniques, yet they were probably more powerful than both Senju and Uchiha clans. Tsunade took a breath, looking over the scroll in wonder. This is incredible, Hiashi finished as he listened. If I knew such things existed. He shook his head. Perhaps there's hope for my clan yet if the Uzumaki seals were so powerful. Tsunade looked up at him, hoping for the caged bird seal's destruction. Yes, the man said without hesitation, it still grieves me that my brother gave his life for me, all because he was a branch member. My father never was the same after his death. Nor was I. Enko giggled, keep reading, it gets better. While we rest, and I send this message to you, Haim, I should tell you, Naruto knows about his father. Tsunade rose out of her seat in shock as she shouted the last bit, how the hell did that happen? Kakashi took over reading. Naruto told me that while fighting against Killer Bee, he recognized him. He knew and fought with Minato back in the war, nearly got him, too. Apparently he respected him a lot, and Naruto and Bee became friends before he hit Ai's squad with his jutsu. Either way, Naruto's pissed at me still, and he's been taking it out on me in our spars every chance I give him. I've gotta say those exploding clones of his never cease to amaze me. Kakashi trailed off, going pale right along with Anko. Dear Kami, the village's #1 prankster can use exploding clones. We're so dead, aren't we? Anko whined, waterfall tears running down her cheeks. Oh, for Kami's sake. Shizune yelled, growing impatient, and snatching the scroll so she could read it aloud. Once we rested and gotten far enough away from Kumo, we'll take refuge at the fire temple for a few months before finally making our way to Suna, and from there, we head to the land of iron. You know why I'm taking him there, besides the neutrality, I hope, and I promise you that once I've completed his training there, we'll be back before the start of the end of the 3rd year. I'm confident that Naruto can surpass me in all things, except my talent as a writer. The boy has no taste in literature. Ha! Tsunade scoffed, I'd be worried if he liked that mindless smut. As I'm promising you this, I have a few requests. The first is that Naruto be named my heir in my will should something happen to me. All my housings, title is Sanin, and money will be transferred to him upon confirmation of my death. Second, I would like you to rebuild the Uzumaki compound that was abandoned on the outskirts of the village. You know the area. Mito often went there to think. I think all that remains is the mask shrine. There's at least 30 acres there to start with, and if needed, take funding from my accounts to expand should you have to. I have no intentions of letting Naruto stay in that roach-infested boarding house anymore. Thirdly, I'd like a smaller compound purchased for Rinmara Kurosuke, as he will be taking Raiga's family name and clan when he comes to the village. I know it's a lot to ask, but these two deserve that much, and more. Shizune put the scroll down, that's all there is. Tsunade sighed, a small smile tugging at her lips, that old goat's just given me a hell of a workload. Does he realize that building OND clan compound is hard enough, but a smaller one to boot? Hiashi smiled and thought, Kurosuke, Perhaps I should see if Hanabi-chan would be interested. Kakashi chuckled, you leave that to me. I remember going to Uzushio once when it was still around, so I know what the compound should look like. Tsunade glared, so do I, or did you forget I'm a quarter Uzumaki? Oops. Kakashi's sweat dropped. Enko-chan, Kakashi is relieved of duty for the day, Tsunade growled, Enko lighting up like a torch before dragging a white-eyed Kakashi out of the room faster than Naruto could run for ramen. Shizune gave her mentor a slightly devious smirk, that was cruel. He's a cage, now, he can deal with it. Tsunade snipped, returning her gaze to Hiashi, again, I'm sorry that this matter was kept from you so long. We were afraid that others might use Rinmara for his abilities as Raiga did before the Dujutsu matured. But I can assure you that he stole no eyes from the Hyuga clan. Hiashi nodded, I believe you, and understand your misgivings. My clan elders, most of them, would have sought to brand him, and turn him into a stud for breeding. Even though I cannot condone such things, it is my hope that among the Uzumaki techniques Naruto is privy to, he will find a way to remove the seal from Neji and our other members. If that is done, then the elders, the brand, it all comes to an end. Tsunade nodded her thanks to him as he rose, I hope the elders don't trouble you too much over this. They won't let me hear the end of it, he chuckled as he left. Tsunade sighed and sat back in contentment, well, I suppose we should get started. 2 compounds are going to take some doing if we want them both ready in the next 2.5 years. With Naruto. Shouldering a large red storage scroll, Naruto glanced back at his teammates, about how long will it take to reach the temple. Jiraiya thought for a moment, about 3 days as the crow flies, if nothing stops us. He smirked at his blonde pupil, after that display you used against the Raikage, I'm not gonna hold my breath though. Tayuya bumped into the blonde with her shoulder, yeah, and it won't be long before I get the hang of this fire-water combo you and the fur ball said I could try out, so any of those fuckers better watch out if they want our heads. Rinmara looked over at the young Hyuga, Neji-sensei, do you think you could teach me that kaden you used with fire chakra? Neji gave the boy a small smile, maybe, but you have a lightning affinity, Rinmara. Perhaps we could do that instead. The troupe chatted as they moved down the road at a sedate pace, unaware of the pair of eyes on them. He's gotten much stronger than we thought, Itachi-kun. Kisame asked from the shadows. So it would seem, Itachi said from his side, but that just makes the game more interesting, doesn't it? 17. Tayuya's contract. Suzaku's trial of riddles. Ah, this feels so good. Tayuya sighed happily as she dipped her feet in the river they were camped beside. I can't believe it's been so long since we were able to relax like this. She looked further up the stream where Naruto was collecting water for their canteens. How are you feeling? Naruto grinned at her, her good mood infectious, better. Crazy how much strain Kurama's chakra put on me when he forced all my other elemental chakras to activate, huh? He asked, never thought I'd be in that much pain just from chakra burns. He sat down beside her, and dipped his feet in, sandals and all. What about you, are you doing alright? Tayuya blinked at him, me. Why the hell would I be feeling bad? She asked, thinking back over the last few days after their escape. They had spent almost the entire week running to get out of Kumo's territory, avoiding a few patrol squads that hadn't gotten word of the battle yet, and just keeping out of sight at times, not even lighting a fire at night, even though it was getting cold. Kumo's surrounding climate got colder than Iwa, or Konoha's for that matter. She hadn't liked it at all that first night they slept in the black of night without the comforting warmth of a fire to keep them company. Naruto shrugged, you haven't been sleeping all that well. He pointed out, a small blush dusting both their cheeks. In truth, Tayuya found that the dark terrified her, leading her to getting little to no sleep during the night. On the 3rd night without fire, she'd had a nightmare that she was back in Orochimaru's compounds. She'd woken up gasping, and found Naruto sitting next to her. The blonde Chunin hadn't said a word, but simply slid in beside on the bedroll. Tayuya nearly threw a fit, of course, but that would have alerted the others, and she could do without the embarrassment. Before she could say anything to him though, he'd pulled her down beside him, resting her head on his chest before telling her to go to sleep. Without much of a choice, bar causing a racket, she fell asleep soon afterward, and slept through the night. The teasing had been terrible, but it was well worth a good night's sleep. Tayuya smiled at the recent memories. "I've been getting better," she said truthfully, reaching out to touch her hand to the water, letting it swirl around her fingers, and then flicked it at him. "I owe you for that one, thanks," she said, the blush on her cheeks brightening as she leaned against his shoulder. Naruto gulped at the contact while a certain fox was howling at him in laughter as the boy's heart took off. "Okay, this is kinda nice," Kyuubi put in with a laugh. "Just admit that you're attracted to her already, and tell her how you feel." "Not happening," Naruto said, trying not to look at the girl leaning on him, knowing his resolve would be nothing but dust if he did. "I don't feel that way about her. I've told you that before." "HMPH, liar," Kyuubi said, sifting through his vessel's memories, mainly of Tayuya. The moment he saw her bathing in the river nearly made the boy whimper, while the rage he felt the day he'd killed Raiga on her behalf still made him feel cold. The feeling of Tayuya's arms around him after his fight against the squad of Kumo shinobi was still fresh and warm. "Admit it." Naruto admitted nothing, but slowly, steadily, placed his left arm around her shoulders. Tayuya for her part, was a little startled the contact, but allowed it, thinking it was just him being friendly, as usual. That, and she was used to the feeling after 4 nights of sleeping in his arms. In all honesty, she liked it. Naruto was warm, and, in her opinion, made a comfortable pillow. Though it still irked her that he was taller than her now, he was starting to look more like a man than the silly, smiling boy she'd met only 5 months ago. So much had happened since then that it felt more like years than months to her, and she couldn't see herself surviving without either her new sensei, or Naruto. When she thought about, she could see that the blonde Chunin was not only her friend, but her best friend. Rinmaro was like her little brother, and Neji even seemed to like her. But Naruto was different. She looked up for a moment, watching the water flow by, reveling in the peacefulness of the day. But something caught her attention. A small whine that was coming from the river upstream. "What's that?" Both teens turned as a small, furry blob floated down the river, trying frantically to get to shore. Oh! Tayuya was on her feet and in the water in a matter of moments as she raced to get to the little animal. "Careful, Tayuya-chan," Naruto yelled as he went after her, fearing the current would catch her. Tayuya didn't pay any attention to him as she hunched down to scoop up the little creature. As she raised back up, 2 tiny golden brown eyes were staring back at her with what she thought might be relief. A tiny red fox kit was now nestled in her arms, shivering from the near drowning. Tayuya made her way back to shore with a little help from Naruto as he reached her and hauled her out of the water. "How'd that little guy get in the water?" Naruto asked when he saw the little fox she was holding. Tayuya shrugged, "Probably fell in when it got separated from its mother," she said as she started petting the little critter as it nuzzled against her for warmth, making her giggle. "He's adorable." == What happened to you two? Rinmaro asked when Naruto and Tayuya returned to camp, and saw the little fox tucked in the girl's arms. "Wow, I've never seen a baby fox before," he cried, rushing over to see the little animal. The fox kid was wary of the child, but allowed him to pet it, its ears flattened out. Neji came over to inspect the animal as well, having never seen one in person since Konoha had a deep disliking of foxes in general after the Kyuubi's assault. "It's so small, it can't be more than a few months old, can it?" "He has his teeth," Naruto smirked, holding up a slightly bloodied finger that the little fellow had mistaken for food. Rinmaro giggled childishly as the fox shook his fur out after being petted by the boy. "Are you gonna keep him?" "Why not?" Tayuya smiled at the boy. "This team's already a band of misfits, so what's one more?" "I beg your pardon," Neji growled. Tayuya just grinned at him, no offense. Naruto just laughed and patted her on the shoulder. "Don't mind him, he's just a tight ass by nature." "Hey," Neji said, sounding insulted, "I'm standing right here in case you've forgotten." By the time Jiraiya arrived at camp from buying supplies in Keisha, Tayuya's new friend had been fed, and was curled up against her stomach while she sat in front of the campfire as Naruto and Neji cooked their dinner. The aging Gamma Sennin took on look at the fox and smiled. Well, looky here. The man smiled. Never thought I'd see a spirit fox from Mori no Kuni all the way out here. Tayuya and the others looked at him in surprise. Spirit fox? She asked, looking at the sleeping kid. This little guy's a spirit. Jiraiya nodded. A young one. Where did you find him? He was floating down the river when Tayuya saw him, Naruto said as the man took a seat next to the redhead. Jiraiya chuckled as the little fox came away with a squeak, and looked around with wide, intelligent eyes. Far too intelligent for a normal fox. Well, now I don't have to worry about finding you another contract to sign, he said as the little fox regarded him, and knelt in front of them. Little one, he said, addressing the fox, who stood up, his bushy tail raised up high. In return for my student saving thy life, I make this request. Allow her to sign the contract so that you may form the bond of summoning. Tayuya watched in wonder as her fox emitted a small amount of chakra she hadn't sensed from him before, and jumped into the air, twirling end over end before a puff of smoke came from him, and down fell a large scroll into the Jiraiya's waiting hands, while the kid fell back onto Tayuya's lap, looking up at her while wagging his tail. By now, the boys' attention was thoroughly caught as they gathered around while Jiraiya opened the scroll for Tayuya, and smiled. Not one person signed this scroll. You've got no idea how rare this is. And foxes, too. Jiraiya beamed. Neji knelt to examine the scroll. Why is the fox scroll so special compared to other summoning scrolls? He asked. Most of the scrolls I've seen have a few names written from their family ties, and they're all around this size, but other than the rarity of the creature, I can't see anything special. Jiraiya just grinned as Tayuya knelt to join them, the little fox crawling up to her shoulder. Well, it's the foxes themselves that are special. Well, any beast from Mori no Kuni is worth the risk if you happen to go there. The four children looked at him in confusion. Let me explain. Mori no Kuni is probably the most wild place in the world. There aren't any people there because the animals are all savage and large like they were in the dawn of time. It's also where many spirits like foxes, dragons, and phoenix live. Out of those three, dragons are the most revered and powerful, but they fear the fox because the fox is both cunning and powerful. A phoenix, while powerful, isn't as smart as the fox, and would lose in a battle without a doubt, and the dragon, while he could overpower the fox in a direct fight, would lose if the fox could outwit him. Naruto whistled in appreciation. Man, it's a wonder why no one's tried to get the contract before. Jiraiya shrugged, probably because no one wants to risk it. I wasn't kidding when I said that land was wild, he said, and gestured to Tayuya. Now, since the little fella likes you, it'd be best if you signed it, and tried to summon. Okay, then, Tayuya said, retrieving a kunai from her holster, and making a small cut on her thumb. This feels sorta like betraying the contract I already have. Jiraiya shrugged. The Doki tribe never have held onto their summoners. From what I hear, they usually eat them if not controlled properly. Needless to say, Tayuya hurriedly signed her name away. Jiraiya stepped back. Alright, give her some room, no telling how big the summon will be, he said as he and the other backed off. Performing the necessary hand seals, Tayuya slammed her injured hand to the ground, resulting in a surprisingly large puff of smoke. Who has summoned me? Asked a gentle, yet harsh voice. Tayuya nearly yelped as she came face to face with her new summon. I am wife of the great Suzaku, Kagura of the eastern forests. Kagura was an imposing creature, even though she wasn't as big as some of the toads Jiraiya summoned. A fox the size of a horse with 5 bushy tails was nothing short of amazing. Tayuya gave a stiff bow to the vixen. It was me that summoned you, Kagura-sama. My name is Tayuya of the North Gate. She used her old title from the Sound 4, hoping to make herself sound presentable. It's an honor to meet you. The little fox on her shoulder gave a short yip and hopped over to the larger female, and landed on her head. Kusano-chan. So this is where you'd gotten off to? She inquired of the kid, getting a long string of yips and whines from him. I see, she looked at the girl. Thank you for saving my kid. I had been worried for some time about his whereabouts. I take it that he was the one that supplied the scroll for you. He was, Tayuya nodded, smiling at the little fox. He's such a little sweetie. My friends and I were glad to take care of him. Kagura looked around at the gathered shinobi, taking interest in Naruto and Jiraiya, toad summoners. How interesting. I would have thought they would have you sign their contract. Jiraiya offered the fox a smile. We thought about that, but Gamabunta can be rather harsh with his summoners, and Tayuya-chan is more of a long-range fighter while the toads are close combat experts. Kagura dipped her head in a nod as she seated herself, sound logic. Very well, I will test her. Test? Tayuya asked. Never fear, I will simply ask you 3 riddles before approving you to my mate, where he will ask you a 4th riddle. Kagura explained, we prefer our summoners to have some wit about them, as we kitsune are a cunning breed. Do all summoned spirits test their summoners? Rinmara asked, eyeing the massive canine. Kagura nodded in his direction. As a matter of fact, we do, little one. The kitsune test is to have a summoner answer our riddles, which is far more simple than what old Kohaku of the Dragon Clan does. Unless you find the idea of facing a dragon in single combat inviting. Tayuya shivered at the thought of such a thing. I'll take the riddles. Kagura smiled. Then let us begin. You can easily touch me, but cannot see me. You can throw me out, but not away. What am I? The kitsune asked. Tayuya sat in thought for a moment. Easily touch, but not see, throw me out, but not away, you're my back. I can reach my back, but I can't see it, and I can throw it out if I lift something too heavy, but I can't throw it away because it's part of me. Well done. Kagura dipped her head. Next, what has 13 hearts, but not other organs? Tayuya smiled. That's easy, it's a deck of cards. Correct. Kagura smiled. It seems my son has picked a good summoner. Now, for my final riddle before I can summon my mate. In the morning I walk on 4 legs, in the afternoon I walk on 2, in the evening I walk on 3, what am I? Tayuya smiled once more, snapping her fingers, the cycle of a human life. First you crawl as a baby, then you walk as an adult, and use a cane when you grow old. Kagura rose to her feet. That was well done, and your answers came quickly. You are able to plan while under pressure, and are clever to boot. I will now summon my mate so he may test you with one final riddle. Kagura stomped her right paw on the ground, forming a summoning circle of her own. Tayuya jumped back. Know that if this was indeed the boss summon, he would be enormous. Naruto watched his friend as the larger puff of smoke erupted in front of them, seeing that she was right to move. This Suzaku was indeed a boss-level summon, because the last time Naruto had seen a puff that large was when Jiraiya had summoned Gamabunta. A gigantic white paw stepped out of the smoke, crashing into the ground, making the poor humans gulp at the size. Tayuya gasped as she caught sight of the beast inside the cloud. Be beautiful. Suzaku was a snow fox. A massive, 9-tailed snow fox with black-tipped ears and tails. He cast an icy glare down at the girl in front of him, and glanced toward the smaller Kagura. Kagura, why did you summon me so far outside our territory? The kitsune rumbled. You know that I do not like leaving our lands unless necessary. I know you don't, my love, but I was summoned here by a ninja vixen, Kagura explained. She's answered all of my proffered riddles, and you know that means that I have to summon you to make the last one. Suzaku looked down at the girl once more with slight contempt. Kagura sighed. She also saved our son from drowning. I think that more than warrants our gratitude, don't you agree? The massive fox didn't answer, opting to keep his ice-blue eyes trained on Tayuya. Naruto thought for a moment that he might attack her, and moved in closer to her, catching the summon's attention. Boy, you have no business interfering. Naruto glared at him. I'm just making sure you don't try anything. He said to the fox, showing no fear. I've had a few experiences of my own from a certain fox that tried more than once to trick me. Ouch, now that hurt. It's no less true, you old fur ball. Suzaku glared at him, then caught his scent. Ah, you hold our king. The great Kyuubi is sealed within your body. He turned his attention back to Tayuya. If you are in companionship with this one, then I know she will not disappoint. Now, I will ask my riddle. Suzaku took a deep breath, and began. What is greater than kami, worse than evil, which the poor have and the rich require, and if you eat it, you die. Tayuya gulped. That's kinda harder than Kagura-san's, she thought for a moment. Is there something greater than the kami? And what could be worse than evil that poor people have, but the rich require it? And if I ate it, then I'd die. For a long time, Tayuya didn't answer, and Suzaku began to grow impatient. Your answer, ninjin, he growled from above. Pursing her lips, Tayuya looked up at the great beast. I think the answer is, nothing. Nothing, you say. Tayuya nodded. Nothing could be greater than a kami, and there's nothing I know of that's worse than evil, plus the poor having nothing, and the rich require nothing, and I didn't eat anything, I'd eventually starve to death, so I say the answer is nothing. Kagura looked up at her mate. And smiled. I told you she was clever. Indeed, Suzaku smiled, looking down at her. You have passed our test, little one. Tayuya broke into a smile. The Kitsune of Mori no Kuni welcome you to our clan. Call upon us when you have need, and we shall honor the blood of the contract. Tayuya gave a grateful bow to the Kitsune. Thank you so much, Suzaku-sama, Kagura-sama. The family of Kitsune bowed to her in turn, and vanished in a puff of smoke as all summons do, leaving the humans alone. As the smoke cleared, Tayuya sank to her knees. That was terrifying. Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder. I'll say. That Suzaku was bigger than Gamabunta. Rinmara came running over to her. This is great, Oni-chan. You've got a really strong summoning. And we have a burned meal, Jiraiya sighed, pointing over to the pot that Naruto and Neji had hung over the fire before Tayuya's ordeal. Oh, well, I guess we can go back to Keisha and find a food stand. == Have you seen the latest Bing book? Mori asked. That bastard Namikaze had a brat. He tossed the book down into the dust. What are we gonna do about it, Seiji? The man he was addressing shrugged. Not much we can do about it while we're out here. He said, gesturing to the outpost around them. Tsuchikage-sama wouldn't want us harming him, but if I told the truth, I wouldn't mind putting an end to the little rat if I saw him. Mori smiled at this. We've got 40 good men patrolling the borders of wind, earth, and mountains, as well as all the small border countries. If he comes anywhere near us, we'll know, and he'll be dead. He sneered as Seiji picked up the book. Don't be so sure. He travels with the Gamma Sennin, and is a Jinchuriki. Don't forget what Roshi Jiji was capable of. Seiji cautioned, looking at the picture of the blonde boy. Still, I'm sure he would be a worthy opponent. 18. Sora, the second Kyuubi no Jinchuriki. It was late, well past midnight as Naruto looked at the large building in front of them and sighed. Man, I can't believe this place. It looks like a palace. He said, hoisting Rinmara higher onto his back. Tayuya groaned beside him, leaning on his shoulder. As far as I'm fucking concerned, it is a palace. She moaned, Kami, I'm tired. Jiraiya patted her on the head, smiling at her. It couldn't be helped, Tayuya-chan, he told the girl, earning her glare. It's better that we got here a day or so ahead of schedule than still be traveling. Neji nodded. I believe Jiraiya-sama is right. Those bandits we came across earlier were well aware of your bounties, and they didn't hesitate to go for Rinmara-kun right off the bat. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. It's lucky that they were weaklings, or they would have gotten us with sheer numbers alone. Everybody wants that damned reward. Naruto sighed as he and the rest stepped over the boundary. You sure we'll be safe here, pervy sage? Ignoring the blonde's nickname for him, Jiraiya nodded. I know we will. This is the temple where shinobi monk train day in and day out in hopes of finding the meaning of chakra. If anything, you will all be able to rest and train here while things cool down. He looked down at the blonde as he shifted to the sleeping boy on his back. Besides, Rinmara's been through quite a bit, it'll be good to have some peace for the remainder of the year. Naruto sighed, knowing that he was right. It hadn't even been the full first year and they'd already gotten into so much trouble that it was on par with the invasion of Konoha. Chiraku, Jiraiya called out a moment later, startling the four young shinobi as a tall monk stepped into the light of the moon. It's good to see you, old friend. I hope we haven't found you at a bad time. Chiraku gave them a small smile. Not at all. It's always nice to have visitors at any given time, he said, taking in the state of the four young shinobi behind the man, but it would seem that you lot have had a bit of a rough time. You don't know the half of it, Jiraiya sighed, gesturing to the team. We could all use a good night's rest, and some downtime if that's alright with you. Stay as long as you like, Chiraku said. It'll be nice to have a few young ones around besides the younger monks. Come, I'll show you to your rooms. As Jiraiya followed after the monk, Naruto was right behind him, leading a dozing Tayuya even as she walked along behind him. But the moment he stepped toward the temple, he felt something was wrong. Hey, do you feel that? He asked his tenant. I do, the fox said in interest, and there's no mistake, runt. That is my chakra, both yin and yang. Strange, all of my yin chakra was supposed to be absorbed by the Shinigami when the Yondaime sealed me away inside you. So what do you think this means? Naruto asked. This feels pretty powerful, and if it's here, then it might be a threat. The Kyuubi thought for a moment. While it is worrying that some of my old chakra is present, I do not think it poses a threat. Not yet, which is why I advise you to find its source after you wake in the morning. Kami knows you could all use the rest. And if things lead to a fight, then you'll need your wits about you. Yeah, you're right. Of course I am, the fox grinned, making his container fault. Leave it to a 1,000-year-old fox to ruin a compliment. Naruto shook his head as Chiraku lead them inside the temple. As Naruto and Tayuya passed through the halls, the blonde kept his chakra flared out in case he sensed something, a fact that Jiraiya didn't miss. If the boy was on edge, then something must have been up. Here we are, the monk said, 2 of the boys may share this room. Though, I'm afraid we're unused to having females stay with us, so the young lady will have to share with one of them if she feels comfortable. Jiraiya gave the blonde and redhead a lecherous grin. Oh, she doesn't mind at all, do you, Tayuya-chan? Nope, the girl mumbled sleepily, still leaning on Naruto. Naruto grumbled, that's not fair. She's half asleep, Neji pointed out, and Rinmara's already out like a light. Jiraiya just shrugged. Well, you can't deny that she's been sleeping near Naruto for the past week or so since we've been on the run, so this perfect. Besides, if he tried anything, you know she'd beat the tar out of him. Neji nodded, having witnessed the girl's temper on more than a few occasions. You have a point. The young Hyuga sighed and moved toward the blonde. I'll take Rinmara, I suppose. He said, relieving the blonde of his burden, the boy mumbling sleepily as he was carried into the room. Neji gave a last, short bow to the monk. We thank you for the accommodations. Chiraku smiled. You're quite welcome. He said as Neji slid the door shut, and turned to the other young shinobi. Your room will be next to this one, he told them, giving the blonde a concerned look. I trust that there will be no lewd activities. Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. What's lewd mean? Chiraku sighed in relief. I'll take that as a no. Come along. Naruto followed him, with Jiraiya chuckling behind them. The room next to Neji's was about the same size, and looked quite cozy, especially the rolled-up futons near the wall. Thanks a lot, Chiraku-san, the blonde said as he entered the room, Tayuya trailing after him. Come on, Tayuya-chan, wake up. He grumbled as she stumbled against him. Sleepy, she yawned, nearly bumbling into him again. Jiraiya, watching the pair, had to bite back a howling laugh. That surely would have disturbed the other occupants of the temple. Jiraiya turned to the monk and smiled. They'll be fine. Naruto's too kind to take advantage of anyone, let alone someone like her. Besides that, she'd knock the hell out of him if he did. Yeah, I'm not like you, pervy sage. Naruto called out from their room, causing the sage to falter. Meanwhile, Naruto had little choice but to let Tayuya rest against the wall while he got the bedding ready for them. Thankfully, the futon was large, and big enough for both of them, but he knew Tayuya was probably roll over and latch onto him again. What was he, a pillow? He sighed at that, not really minding. Tayuya's presence while he slept made him feel kinda fuzzy. Twitterpated, the Kyuubi supplied with grin that blonde could almost feel. What the hell's that supposed to mean? Naruto asked the fox irritably. The Kyuubi chuckled, it means a lot of things. Besotted, infatuated, smitten, gully fluffed. The fox cackled as Naruto's face lit up like a bonfire. Will you shut up about that? Naruto roared, Kami, you and pervy sage are like a broken record. He snapped and rolled the futon out, so she's a great girl, and I like her, but that doesn't mean I like her. PFF'd, you're in denial, the fox said, smirking. Let's put that to the test, shall we? What's the first thing you think of when that pink banshee comes to mind? Hurry up. Loud. Again. Violent. Again. Teammate. The fox smiled at him. Good, now what about the red female? Loud and violent. The fox sweat dropped. Is that all? Come on, runt, think of something else. Move it. Strong. Keep it up. Pretty. More. Warm, caring, gentle, rawgh, perfect. Naruto roared angrily, she's perfect, alright. Ya happy. Naruto sighed as the fox said nothing and seemingly went back to sleep. Damned fox, always making me say stuff. What's he bugging you about now? Tayuya asked. Gah, Naruto grabbed at his heart, I thought you were asleep. He yelped, turning to see the kunoichi rubbing her eyes sleepily. I kinda was until you put me down, she mumbled, a slight blush on her face. I guess I got used to how warm you are. Seriously, you like one of those space heater things? Naruto rolled his eyes as he spread the blanket out for them. Glad I could be useful. As for what the fox wanted, he was just nagging me about some weird chakra we felt earlier when we got here. Tayuya seemed to come awake. Weird how? Naruto noticed a slight tremble in her voice. Shithead, what did it feel like? Naruto shrugged. It felt like another Kyuubi, only weaker, smaller. The Kyuubi thinks that something in the area might have some of his chakra left in it from when he was running loose. Tayuya visibly relaxed. Oh, I guess that's good. She sighed, her hand against her chest. Naruto noticed this, but left it alone. He knew she was nervous about something, but figured she would tell him when she was ready. Tayuya was silent as he made up their bed, and then blushed when he started taking his clothes off. What the fuck are you doing? She yelped when she saw this. Naruto gave her a look, getting ready for bed. Tayuya covered her face as his Hiyori and shit came off. You're not gonna tell me you sleep in the buff. My pants, thank you, Naruto said, finishing, and why are you embarrassed? You've seen me like this before. Yeah, in the bath. She snapped again. Naruto smirked at her, deciding it was payback time. So, you can use me as a pillow for a near week, but the minute I take my shirt off to get comfortable, you go all girly girl on me. Gee girly girl. Tayuya sputtered, blushing madly, this time with anger. Now you listen here, shithead. Tayuya of the Sound 4 is no pansy ass. Princess. She growled, marching over and poking him in the chest. More like I'm worried that you'll try to take advantage of me while I'm asleep. Naruto deadpanned at her. How do I look like, pervy sage? A loud sneeze was heard down the hall. Naruto shook his head, running his hand through his hair, and there's no way that I'd do that. For one thing, yeah, I'm a bit of a perv, but there's no way in hell I'd ever force myself on a girl. 2. You'd happily beat anyone that did that to you to death, and dance on their tombstone. Damned right I would. She poked him again, then gave a wicked smile of her own. Two could play this game. Fine, you wanna get comfy, then me, too. Naruto's jaw slackened, huh? Then blushed dark red as Tayuya started undressing. Wah. At least let me turn around first. The blonde Jinchuriki yelled, turning about quickly. Why? He heard Tayuya ask, you've seen me naked before. Are you ever gonna let me live that down? And you've seen me in a two-piece, which is basically underwear, so what the hell's wrong with this? She asked, a smile evident in her voice as he heard her clothes hitting the floor. Says the girl that was freaking out at seeing me without a shirt one just 5 minutes ago. Naruto muttered, and felt a pillow hit him in the back of the head. Hey. Hey is for horses, Tayuya giggled, and Naruto turned to glare at the girl only to gawk. Tayuya's shorts and purple kimono shirt were gone, leaving her in her undershirt that went to her lower thighs and nothing more. Damn, Naruto thought, hearing a dark chuckling from a certain fur ball. Tayuya noticed where his eyes were beginning to wander, and quickly snapped her fingers in front of his face. Hey, shithead, my eyes are up here. She smirked at having flustered the blonde. Naruto gulped, right, sorry, we should get some sleep. Yeah, that's it, sleep. Tayuya nearly wanted to laugh herself sick at the sight of Naruto's floundering as he retreated under the covers. No need to be embarrassed. She muttered before joining him, sighing as she enjoyed the feeling of the soft bedding. Cammy, I almost can't remember the last time we slept in a bed. She mumbled, scooting closer to him, and facing away from him. Almost makes me wish we could stay for a little longer than a month. Naruto chuckled, finding a little courage. Yeah, I know. I'm even starting to miss the cot I call a bed back home. He said, and felt her sidle up to his back, blushing as she snuggled against him. Comfy. Yeah, she mumbled against his back, you're always so warm. Is that the fox's doing? Naruto shrugged, dunno, but for as long as I can remember, I've never actually gotten really cold, or even sick for that matter. He said, remembering the few times as a child that he'd actually slept on the streets. Comes in handy a lot. I bet. She wrapped her arms around his middle, sighing a little as she stared at his bare back. Naruto. Naruto stiffened. Yeah. Orochimaru is a really big base close to here, she said quietly, a shiver rolling through her. She felt Naruto shivered, too. But it wasn't for the same reason. Naruto, if she could see his face, was gritting his teeth at the mention of the hubby Sennin. How far? Not far at all. Tayuya shook her head against his back. It's one of his most used bases. We've actually gone past a lot of old ones he doesn't use anymore. What? Naruto gasped, turning about to look at her in disbelief, but you promised Pervy Sage that you'd. I know. Tayuya snapped, hiding her face from him. I know I promised, but those bases were useless to you. I wasn't kidding when I said they were abandoned. He took everything from them that could be used to either find him or hinder any plans he had. Naruto growled, still, you should have told us. We could have destroyed them, or something, maybe found something on him. He said, but the girl shook her head. Naruto sighed, Tayuya-chan, are you afraid? She didn't answer, but she stiffened against him, giving him all the answers he need. Naruto wrapped his arms around her, and held her tightly. You know I'm never gonna let him hurt you again. You're my friend, so I'd protect you from anything, even a snake like him. Tayuya nodded, I know you would. But he is the cruelest, most twisted monster I've ever met. I know I act tough, and say I'll kill him, but the truth of it is, he terrifies me. Naruto was shocked at Tayuya's sudden outburst. It was the first time since Kiri that she had said something akin to this, and this time she was sober. Tayuya. Tayuya clutched at him tightly. No, you don't understand. I've seen what he can do. She said, when I was brought to him, I was already scared, but then, he tore me apart. Her voice cracked, and Naruto felt a wetness against his chest, and realized that she was crying. When he started training me, I was thrown in with the shinobi that already had the curse mark, and they were all too far gone to be called human. And then I got mine. She reached up and touched the spot where her seal had once been. It was the most painful thing that's ever happened to me, even after getting a tree thrown on top of me. When he bit me, I felt like my insides were boiling, and my bones were melting, and then I saw what I looked like. I can still feel it, too. Naruto's eyes widened, but the mark's gone, Tayuya-chan. Tayuya shook her head, he only deactivated it. I can still feel it there, he could use it to take control of me at some point if he wanted. I won't let that happen, he growled, forcing her to look up at him with his hand under her chin. I'll get to work on the seal I was planning to use on Neji first thing in the morning, then we can get rid of any seal that was placed on you by that bastard. He smiled at her, you'll be free. Tayuya's eyes softened, glistening with unshed tears, and hid her face in his chest again. Just promise me, if we find him there, and it's a pretty fucking big chance, you won't fight him. He's too strong for you. Naruto smirked, no. What? Tayuya snapped up to glare at him, only get the shock of her life when she felt his lips on her forehead. Her face burned. Naruto leaned back, smiling at the girl's wide-eyed look, and the blush on her cheeks. If we find him, and we will, I'm going toe-to-toe with him, and I'll burn him to ash, just like those Kumo teams that tried to take Rinmara-chan. Only this time, I won't be so nice to warn him. Then I can knock Sasuke's dumb ass out and drag him home. Tayuya bit her lip, still feeling the tingle left by his kiss, even if it was on her forehead. Then, just don't die, okay? Promise. Naruto smiled, closing his eyes, and letting sleep overtake him. Tayuya smiled at him and curled up against him, following him into sleep. == The next morning, Naruto woke earlier than he planned, if only to get in some extra practice. Tayuya was still sleeping soundly, using his arm as a pillow as usual. He grinned, and created a shadow clone to substitute himself with so he could move. Seeing Tayuya mumble in her sleep at the slight interruption in her slumber, Naruto smiled and moved out of the room, not bothering with a shirt, and padded down the hall quietly. From what he could tell, his friends weren't up yet, but the monks were. He could sense them all around, in the courtyard mostly. He reached the entrance and found a large group moving through their morning exercises, and katas. Good morning, Naruto-kun. Naruto spun around and found Chiraku smiling at him. You're up rather early for one coming in so late last night. Was there anything troubling you? Naruto just grinned. No, I actually enjoyed my sleep for once in the past week. I just wanted to find a quiet spot so I could train. He gave the monk a curious look. Would that disturb anyone here? Chiraku shrugged. That all depends on what you're working on. We do have a training area for small-scale ninjutsu, but for something large. It's nothing like that, Naruto said. I'm working on advanced nature manipulation, and a seal I promised to someone. Still smiling, the blonde showed him the white gold flames of his Shikuden jutsu. I just need a place I can create about 50 clones to work on the manipulate while I work the seal myself. Chiraku offered the boy an impressed smirk. Practicing the art of sealing at your age. That's quite impressive. Not really, Naruto said bashfully. My calligraphy sucks, but the seals work just fine. But the one I want to get down is a little tricky, so is there some place I can go so I won't be a bother? Before Chiraku could answer, a boy bumbled out of the temple, nearly colliding with the blonde shinobi, who jumped back just in time to avoid the boy. I'm sorry, Chiraku-sensei, I overslept again. Chiraku patted the boy on the shoulder. Ah, Sora-kun, just in time. I'd like you to show our guest to the training ground down the western side, if you don't mind. He's requested a small area to get a little work done, and kindly wished not to disturb the others while they trained. The boy, Sora, looked at the blonde in question. Who the hell is this guy? Naruto gained a tick mark over his head. Uzumaki Naruto, nice to meetacha. He said stiffly, holding out his head. Sora just arched his eyebrow at him. So, fishcake. Maelstrom. Naruto roared, I hate it when people mix those up. Sora grinned, so, what? You're a shinobi. Where's your hit I ate? He asked. I left back in my room with the rest of my things, Naruto said. I don't usually wear a lot of clothes when training nowadays, since they usually get torn to shreds, and I'm running out of spares. Chiraku nodded as if it made sense to him. A smart idea, considering the power of that Kaden chakra you flared earlier. I've never seen flames like that. It's not Kaden, Naruto smirked proudly, it's Shikuden. I created by combining Futon and Kaden chakras to make this new one. It's really cool, but I'm only just getting the hang of the large-scale jutsu. If Chiraku was impressed before, he was shocked now. This boy can use a pseudo-scorch release. He thought to himself, then looked at Sora. That is impressive, would you mind showing Sora-kun how it's done? His dream is to one day surpass me, and take over this temple. Naruto looked at the gray-haired boy, Futon. Yeah, Sora nodded stiffly, not liking the fact that he was being pushed toward the stranger. Naruto just smiled. Why not? I already showed Tayuya-chan how you make Futon, so maybe you could do something similar, huh? Boil release. Chiraku was stunned once again. Just what kind of things is Jiraiya teaching these little ones? Naruto and Sora made their way to the back of the temple, and down a small flight of stairs to a small training ground that Naruto thought would be perfect for his morning routine. Alright, let's get started. He grinned, forming his favorite hand sai, Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Sora leapt back in surprise as around 6 clones popped into existence. Holy shit. Naruto grinned. 30 of you work on our Shikuden, the others will work on water manipulation. Snap to it. Right. The clones roared as one, and go to work straight away. The Shikuden workers all finding a space to work on combining the wind and fire natures to better the techniques, and the water users finding a leaf to try and soak it with their water-based chakra. The original then turned to Sora. Alright, let's see what I can do for you before I get started on my seals. Do you have a second nature? Sora was nearly too stunned to speak at seeing so many clones, solid ones to boot. I have a weak fire nature. Naruto sighed, we'll have to work on that first. Naruto smiled, but don't worry, it won't take long for you to be able to use Kaden, and then we can move on to Shikuden if I'm still around. Runt, do you feel that? It's my chakra again. Yeah, and I think I know who it's coming from. Naruto kept the smile on his face as he gazed at the slowly smiling face of Sora, another Kyuubi no Jinchuriki. == 19. Sealing art. The Uzumaki void. Naruto sat in place, examining the seal in front of him. The matrix itself was complex, far too complex for him to even attempt yet without testing it. But that was going to be a problem. The seal required a large area to work with, because it was meant to remove powerful seals, like Juin no Jutsu. The idea that he could somehow use this seal to rid Neji of his curse mark was once his biggest goal, but now he had other ideas. Tayuya had revealed to him that she still possessed her curse seal from Orochimaru made Naruto's blood boil, and there was no way he was letting her live with the fear of being controlled by him at some point. No, he had to get this jutsu down, or else let Tayuya keeping being afraid. As Naruto studied, he watched as Sora tried his hand at the fire manipulation exercise of keeping the burning center of a leaf from spreading. The dark-haired boy was gritting his teeth in concentration as he tried to keep the embers going, yet no giving them enough room to burn the entire leaf. Honestly, Naruto was impressed by the young monk, which made it all the more important that he help him with his Kyuubi's chakra. He could feel it very strongly from the boy's right arm, which was wrapped tight in bandages. His train of thoughts was broken when one of his clones dispelled, giving him the information that it had gotten down the water manipulation, while passing on the word to take the next step. For that, he would need a river. Meanwhile, the clones working with his Shikudan abilities were coming along nicely. From what Kyuubi had been drilling into him, forcing two opposing chakra to join as one was damn near impossible for such a short amount of time, thank Kami for shadow clones. A few of the clones had balls of white-hot flames between their hands, a sure sign of the Shikudan taking shape. Though still small, it was progress from what the gigantic fox had left him with. It wouldn't be much long until he could use some of the larger-scale jutsu and… "You're certainly up early," a jovial voice said from the front of the blonde. He looked up to see Jiraiya smiling at him with a few onigiri in hand. "Never thought I'd see the day when you skipped out on breakfast." Naruto grinned as Jiraiya handed him one of the rice balls. "It's that late in the morning yet. Besides, I just wanted to get a feel for this jutsu Aizen Gigi showed me. If I'm right, it'll allow me to keep my promise to Neji." Jiraiya quirked an eyebrow in interest. "Oh. And what are those?" he asked, looking down at the ceiling paper Naruto was marking, and his eyes widened. "Naruto, that's…" "Yup," Naruto beamed. "Pretty awesome, isn't it? See this matrix here? It's for a time seal that…" "I know what it does, Gaki," Jiraiya snapped before looking sheepish. "Sorry, but that seal is incredibly dangerous. I'd seen your mother try it out once before when she was younger, and it nearly drained her of all her natural chakra, and started pulling on her tenant. It was lucky for all of us that Minato and I were watching over her at the time, or else who knows what would have happened." Naruto nodded, crossing one arm across his chest while he ate. "Yeah. Both Gigi and Kyuubi told me how dangerous it is, but the risk is well worth it. I mean, the Mukuo Fuinjutsu is basically the skeleton key to any seal you might come across, and that could include curse marks like Tayuya's or Sasuke's." "Tayuya-chan still has her curse mark?" Jiraiya asked. "I'd thought it was removed by Orochimaru when she was deemed useless." Naruto shook his head angrily. "No, and it's got her scared out of her mind. She thinks he could activate it again and use it to control her if he was close enough, and he is." He looked up at his sensei. "She told me that his main base is somewhere nearby. It's an almost guarantee that he's there training Sasuke to do who knows what." Jiraiya's face turned cold. "I see. Well, that does make things a little simpler, doesn't it?" He stroked his chin in thought. "Sasuke's no doubt just as strong as you are. Maybe just a bit stronger, but the advantage we have is that neither of them know exactly how strong you've become. Though I'll bet that they've seen the bingo books by now, and you're pretty easy to recognize with that blonde hair, Gaki." Naruto sighed, picking his brush back up. "We can worry about knocking his head off later. Right now, I want to get this seal ready. If it can counteract the hubby Tem's curse seals, then we've got ourselves an ace in the hole." Jiraiya nodded in understanding. "Good point. You know, you're reminding me more and more of your parents each and every day, Naruto." He reached out and ruffled the boy's hair. "You've got your mom's spunk, and your dad's good looks. It won't be long before you've got your own little habanero to worry about." Naruto brushed his bangs out of his eyes and smiled. "Thanks, pervy sage. == Tayuya woke up feeling refreshed and rested as she stretched on the futon, reaching out, and finding that she was sleeping alone. That wasn't right. She knew she'd fallen asleep in a set of strong arms the night before, and she couldn't have asked for more than that. But now those arms were gone, and so was the warm pillow that she had come to be accustomed to in the past week or so. She sat up, rubbing her eyes to clear away the sleep still there, wondering where he'd gone, but found the room empty. Naruto. The room was quiet, which made her nervous. Though they were safe at the temple, that didn't mean nothing could happen. All her years of serving a sadistic bastard made the girl's nerves as taut as razor wire. She dressed quickly in fresh clothing stored in one of Naruto's scrolls, and made her way out into the hall. Again, it was all quiet, and the girl padded down the hall quick as a mouse, finally hearing the sounds of shouts as the monks moved through their morning katas. She stepped out into the despairing area and found Neji and Rinmara watching them as they moved. "Morning, you two." Tayuya smiled brightly. "What's been going on?" Rinmara smiled at her over his shoulder. "Nothing, Oni-san. All that's been going on is the sparring matches between the monks. Neji thought it was a good idea for me to get a feel for another form of taijutsu in case Juken fails me." Tayuya smiled at the little boy and took a seat next to him. "Great idea, though why didn't you ask Gigi to teach you the Ryu no Mai? Me and Shithead-kun are getting pretty good at it." Rinmara sighed. "Yes, I know, but my muscles and bones aren't strong enough to go through the training." Neji-sensei said that it's because the Byakugan naturally uses quick and precise movements to attack. Hence the reason a Goken taijutsu would be senseless because his muscle mass would expand far too much to move quickly, Neji stated. "The monks here use a taijutsu that relies on throwing and holds, which would indeed benefit Rinmara-kun's abilities, and my own since it's mainly the practicer using the target's weight and strength against them." Tayuya sighed and sat back while watching the monks. "I guess that makes sense, but what about your chakra control over the Tenseigan?" she asked, looking at the boy. "I haven't seen you use it in a while, and I know that Gigi was training you in the water walking exercise." Neji shrugged in answer. "Well, we haven't had much time to train with everything that's been going on. Don't forget that we've had bounty hunters and bandits to deal with. But I must say," he smiled at the young Byakugan user, "you handled yourself very well in the last ambush. I think you're shaping up to be a fine shinobi, Rinmara-kun." Rinmara blushed under that praise of his sensei. He then looked at the redhead. "Ne-san, what about your training? Didn't Naruto-ni say something about helping you with Fudan?" Tayuya nodded. "Yeah, that's right, but I think I need some pointers on combining the chakra." She laughed at that. "You know, it's amazing, to think that something like Naruto's Shikuden is teachable." She kicked her feet a little in thought, what my old sensei wouldn't give to get his hands on that little secret. Neji sighed, or what he'd do to get his hands on Rinmara's eyes if he ever found out about them. Tayuya reached up and patted said boy on the head, smiling at him. "Yeah, no way is that gonna happen with me and Shithead around." "Nay, Oni-san," Rinmara said, "how come you call Ni-san names like that?" Tayuya gave him a confused look. "Like what?" Neji grinned at her. "I think he means the way you call him, Shithead, all the time." He said, "Honestly, I'm a little surprised myself. You like him, right?" Tayuya's face lit up like a furnace. What the hell are you talking about?" Rinmara wisely got himself out of the line of fire as Tayuya's glare threatened violence. Neji himself was contemplating making a run for it. Though he was confident in his skills, he did not want to get in a fight with a girl that could cause an entire area to explode with only 2 jutsu. But before he could make an excuse, a loud shout and an explosion erupted from the back of the temple. Tayuya and Neji jumped up in surprise, along with all of the monks turning in the direction of the large smoke plume rising from the back. Tayuya gained a large vein on her head. "Why do I get the feeling that Shithead just fucked up big time?" Meanwhile, ow, 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 why the hell did that have to happen? Naruto wondered as he picked himself up off the ground, his form smoldering, and thanking whatever gods there were that he was only half-dressed, or else another set of robes would be down the drain. Over by the wall he had been working on the seal was an imprint about Jiraiya's size blackened with ash, and not a moment later who should fall out of the wall but said pervert, sending up a puff of smoke. "Gah, remind me never to let you around explosive tags, Gaki." He groaned. Sora, on the other hand, was laughing his ass off, rolling on the ground and holding his sides. "Oh, man, that was hilarious. Why you should have seen your faces." Sora laughed, pointing at the pair. "How the hell do you cause a non-explosive seal to go off like that?" "Aw, shut up," the blonde Jinchuriki groaned, dusting himself off. "I told you it was tricky." "Gah, but who knew it was gonna blow lit that? That wasn't even explosive tag paper." Jiraiya picked himself up and dusted himself off. "You just overcharged it with chakra, but you had it all right. Just tighten the Oseru Fuin you have, and you should be able to make the proper adjustment." Naruto rotated his shoulder, making sure everything was in place. Yeah, but do you think I can test it on? Hey, what the hell are you two trying to do? Tayuya's voice cut in, and the trio turned to see her, Neji, Rinmara and the monks coming toward them. Tayuya skidded to a halt as soon as she spotted the blonde. Naruto, what the fuck happened to you? Naruto grinned, scratching the back of his head bashfully. Well, I sorta overcharged the seal was working on. Tayuya ignored him, and stepped forward, noticing a huge gash across Naruto's right shoulder. It was noticed by the present monks as well, and would have caused quite a stir, if that same gash wasn't closing before their very eyes. It was slow, yet it was healing at a visibly faster rate than humanly possible, but none were as shocked as the face of Sora. His eyes were wide with unhidden shock as they nearly turned white, his pupils almost disappearing. The wound closed, forming a scar on the blonde's shoulder, and Sora snapped out of his daze, shaking his head, and stepping forward. How did you do that? Do what? Naruto asked, rotating his shoulder again to get the soreness out. Sora pointed an accusing finger at him. Your shoulder. How the hell did you do that? I thought I was the only one that. Sora. Chiraku shouted. Sora immediately closed his mouth. But the damage was done. All the other monks were looking at the boy, as well as the blonde shinobi. Naruto turned around and glared at them. Listen up, I've had enough glares to last me a lifetime, so if you're so afraid of me, then get the hell away from me. He turned back to the young monk. The reason I heal so quickly is because I'm a Jinchuriki. His statement drew a large gasp from the monks, and a hard glare from Jiraiya, but the blonde just kept going. If you don't know what that is, then let me show you. He flared up his chakra to a thin, visible layer over his skin, prompting the Tori no Fuin on his stomach to appear. This right here holds the Kyuubi no Kitsune inside me. Because of that, people who were too stupid to tell a kunai from a storage scroll hated me and mistreated me because they hated the Biju. Sora's eyes widened. My healing was already accelerated because I'm part Uzumaki on my mother's side, Naruto explained while flexing his shoulder, but the fox multiplies my healing tenfold. He also gives me almost unlimited chakra thanks to his own reserves. Like him, I have powerful wind and fire nature chakra. My speed is elite Jonin level, and my strength mid Jonin level. Sora listened to all this, and looked down at his bandaged hand, and, why do you look so normal? This caught Jiraiya's attention. Normal. Sora, though hesitant, began unwrapping his arm. I don't know why, but, somehow, my arm. He finished with the bandages, revealing his arm, or what used to be his arm. Naruto grit his teeth as he took in the shape of the appendage. It was more like a gray-skinned claw, with sharp spikes poking out of the forearm. Is this the work of a Biju? Jiraiya stepped forward to examine the boy. There's definitely some sort of chakra corruption, but I can't detect a seal on you anywhere. Naruto. He turned to the blonde, who was already stepping over to him. Naruto wasn't listening. Kyuubi. Yes, that's definitely my chakra's doing. But the pervert is wrong, there's a seal in place alright. But it's pathetically weak. Yeah, you're right, Naruto thought. Think we can do something about it. You'd have to let me absorb my yang chakra from him, and then use the same seal as your father did on you to seal away the yin chakra. And before you ask, I can't simply absorb all of it, because that would be the same as taking a Biju out of him, he'd be killed in minutes. So, what would happen to the chakra still inside him? Oh, it would shape itself inside the seal, and form itself into a smaller, weaker version of myself until it grew into its chakra. In other words, like your father, this runt would become the Jinchuriki to a Yin Kyuubi no Kitsune. Get it? I think so. Naruto nodded, and looked up at Sora. We'll have to do something about this, and soon. Jiraiya nodded in agreement. What's the plan, Gaki? Naruto sighed. Well, I'll have to use one of the void seals to absorb some of the chakra, but you'll need to draw the rest of inside an 8 trigram seal. Naruto said, then grinned at the monk. Don't worry, this'll be way easier than what I was trying a moment ago. Sora gulped. I hope so. I really don't want to blow up. X equals. Sora's nervousness only increased as he watched the two seal artists work. Jiraiya was helping Naruto in a spare room that he asked to use for the sealing. Oddly enough, the seal was incredibly large. All over the room's floors, walls, and ceiling was the matrix of the seal. In the center of the room were two round ceiling points devoid of any ink save for a matrix encircling both points just large enough for a body to lay. Naruto, are you sure I'm doing this bit right? Jiraiya asked. I'd rather not botch this up since we're dealing with a potential Kyuubi here. Naruto looked over his shoulder at the matrix he was finishing up. That's just right, actually. That's the bit that draws the chakra into the desired dimension. I already have the sister seal inscribed on my hand, so it will definitely work. Chiraku, who was present to watch over the young monk, was astonished. This is incredibly complex, are you sure about this? Jiraiya just grinned at him. Trust me, this kid's as good, if not better than me, and his old man put together. But Naruto, this looks similar to the seal you were working on in the courtyard earlier. Naruto nodded, motioning for Sora to come over. It is, because the two seals are sister seals. One is called the Mukuo Fuin, which is used to break other seals, like breaking a contract, hence the nickname, Void Contract Seal. What about this one? Jiraiya asked. I've heard of void seals before, but this is the first time I've ever seen one, let alone two, and I know for a fact that they're dangerous. Naruto had Sora lay on the blank space in the center of the room, before leaping to the ceiling to the opposite spot, and drew a seal for space on it. Well, this one is the Kuahaku Uchu no Fuin. It basically draws an object, person, or chakra into a space of the user's choosing. In this case, it's going to draw a direct line to my seal, but if I wanted to, I could open a space into a true void, as in a dark hole of nothingness. I'd rather not try that one. Sora grinned nervously. I don't think I would either. Naruto chuckled and leapt back down. Alright, let's get this show on the road. He nodded to Jiraiya, who formed a few hand seals, summoning an altar beneath Sora for the next part. Naruto began running rapidly through seal after seal so fast that Sora only caught a few of them, but it ended in the snake. Uzumaki Ryu. Kuahaku Uchu Fuin. 20. Beautiful creature. Pain. That was the first thing that jumped to the forefront of Sora's mind as the seal Naruto activated did its work. The seal Naruto had worked on him was burning his skin like fire as the blonde seal glowed on his palm. As he began to struggle against the pain, he felt a pair of hands on his shoulders, looking up to see Jiraiya holding him down. Don't move, Sora-kun, the old man cautioned, this is the important part. Naruto's absorbing the yang chakra of the fox from you, so he can seal off the yin half. Screw this up now, and both of you might run wild. Chiraku was also at his side. Be strong, Sora. Take out lessons to heart. This pain, this fear you feel, it is all an illusion. Naruto grunted above him in discomfort. Illusion. If this ain't real, then I'm an Uchiha. The young monk looked up at the blonde, seeing that he was just as much in pain as he was as a thin veil of red chakra bubbled up and around him, forming a line to the blonde's seal. That's when it got dangerous. The burning sensation Sora felt became 10 times worse, and Naruto openly yelled in agony. Sora was in worse shape as he started thrashing against the pain as Jiraiya and Chiraku forced him to hold still. Almost there. Naruto howled. Hurry! Sora screamed out, thrashing against the restraining arms of his master and the sage. The seal array glowed a dangerous red around them. Sora cracked his eyes open, and nearly lost it right there. His body was covered in a cloak of the red demonic chakra, and his arm was morphing into the claw he'd come to fear. Chiraku and Jiraiya were both growling in pain as the chakra burned them, but they kept their hands right where they were for his sake. He hazarded a glance at the blonde sealing apprentice, and his eyes widened, his pain forgotten. Naruto's body was all but invisible underneath the cloak of chakra as 3 massive tails made from the stuff billowed out behind him. Naruto was on the edge, and he knew it. There was such an increase in the chakra of the fox that he thought the seal might give way to the sheer force of the invading chakra. Runt, you'd better hold on. The Kyuubi roared. Aizen didn't shove the knowledge of these seals into you just so you could cop out like this. Could you shut? Naruto roared. I'm trying. Suddenly, as if some sort of cord had been cut, Sora and Naruto's pain stopped, and both fell back, one to the ground, the other back onto the ceiling altar. Their chakra cloaks faded back into their bodies as the two caught their breath. Damn it, Naruto groaned, rubbing his chest. I knew it'd be rough, but Kami damn it. That was almost as bad as getting his with Sasuke's Chidori. Jiraiya and Chiraku stepped back, examining their hands, both of which were badly burned from the contact with the Kyuubi's corrosive chakra. That the worst bit out of the way, though, the old Sennin said, looking over the exhausted Sora, now comes my turn. Chiraku looked at the man in concern, are you certain? You're burned quite badly, and perhaps we should take the moment to let the boys rest a bit. Naruto shook his head, no, the sooner we seal off the fox's chakra, the better off Sora will be. Naruto said, right now, that chakra seal he has on him is leaking the chakra into his system at odd intervals. Sooner or later the chakra will take control of him, and create another Kyuubi. And he'll be killed. Sora looked over at the blonde tiredly, I'm fine, we should get this over with while we can. I don't want to hurt anyone again, like last time. He breathed heavily, looking over at his master, please, Chiraku-sensei. Chiraku sighed and stepped aside, by your leave, Jiraiya-sama. Jiraiya cracked his knuckles and stepped up the boy, first, I need a toad to inscribe the sealing key onto. He said, letting the blood from his wounds drip down to his fingers, and slammed his hand to the floor, Kochios, Garokai. A puff of smoke later found the four staring at a green and black toad with 2 rings around its stomach, good of you to come, Kai. I could use your scroll. The toad croaked, why would ya need me, Jiraiya-sama? He asked, looking around, and spied the sealing altar, I get, this Gaki has Biju chakra inside him. Jiraiya nodded, yes, and that's why we need you. It's the Kyuubi again. The Kyuubi ya say. Kai looked over at the blonde, but I thought this Gaki here was its container. Naruto nodded, I've only got the yang half of it, Sora has a partial yin Kyuubi inside him, and it's growing stronger. If we don't do this now, we're looking at 2 Kyuubi running loose in the span of 12 years. Garokai smiled at the boy, smart one this Gaki, just like his old man. Ma and Pa will like him, alright, ya old perv, I'll help ya out. His body extended, and Kai unfurled a scroll from his body, make your mark here as the sealer, and I'll need some chakra from the Gaki. Jiraiya did as instructed, and pressed his hand against the blank scroll, and the matrix for the Tori no Fuin appeared, his hand boxed in by a small square where his hand was placed. Sora sat up and weakly moved over to the scroll and placed his hand in the same spot. Alright, now we just need to make the seal, Jiraiya explained as Sora laid back down on the altar. Sora, this is gonna be a little strange, but you'll be fine. There shouldn't be any pain except a little discomfort from the chakra entering your system, are you ready? Sora nodded, and closed his eyes. 8 trigrams sealing method, seal. Even as Sora's eyes closed, a bright flash of white light enveloped him. X equals. Sora opened his eyes to find himself in what looked like the courtyard of the temple. It was strange, because there was no one around. If he was still at the temple, then where were the other monks? He got up from the ground and hurried toward the temple. That's when he felt it. A presence, small, yet strong. Inside the doors. Cautiously, the boy grasped the wooden frame and slid the door open. Sora's breath left him as he took in the sight before him. There, curled up in the center of the room, and looking dead at him, was a dark brown, 9-tailed fox. His Kyuubi. Though it was smaller than what he was expecting, it was very large for a fox, and would give a rhino fits. It gazed at him with intelligent amber eyes that shone like fire. Who are you? Sora gulped. My name is Sora. I'm a monk in training at the Fire Temple. The Kyuubi cocked its head. Fire Temple. Yes. I see it through your memories. Sora grimaced slightly, you can see my memories. Yes, the fox dipped its head. When it suits me, I can look through your memories to gain knowledge of the outside world. You do not approve of this. Some of my memories are better left forgotten, Sora said sadly, but then noticed something about the fox. Its voice was soft, harsh, yet soft, like, you're a girl. The she-fox dipped her head again, I am. And I assume you're referring to the time when you lost control of yourself because of that poorly scribed seal that was placed on you to hold me here. Sora nodded, the other monks still look at me like a monster. That is the fate of all that are called Jinchuriki, she said, no matter what, so long as I am inside you, you will draw the hatred of all that know what you hold inside. Sora felt a small smile tugging at his lips, that sounds like something Chiraku-sensei would say. He said, I'll be honest, I thought you'd be, well, evil. The she-fox gave a throaty laugh, showing off her fangs, must a Biju be evil? No, Ninjin, others see my kin as evil because they cannot openly control us, which is why there is a need for people like you to house our power, but you cannot stay with the monks any longer. What? Why? Sora asked loudly. I know they're a bunch of stiffs, but, unlike my other half, which desires amusement from his vessel, she said, I desire knowledge. Studying to be a monk is all well and good, Ninjin, but I would like to see the world. Even if it is through the eyes of another. Sora sighed, I'll admit that I've always wanted to travel, but living here has dulled that sense, thus making you afraid of what lies beyond the temple walls. The fox dipped her head, perhaps you should travel with friends, that blonde boy who holds my other half, and the rest of his companions. They would make the journey easier, or perhaps you could find yourself anew through the acts of the shinobi. Admit it that you would rather be using your skills for something other than meditation. Sora considered her words, and smiled, all right, you've got a deal, Kyuubi-san. The she-fox laughed again, my name, little one, is Kareen. X equals. Sora opened his eyes once more to find Chiraku looking down at him and smiling, welcome back, Sora-kun. Sora gave his mentor a smile of his own, it's good to be back, Chiraku-sensei, where are the others? Chiraku smiled and pointed over to the left, where a prone Neji lay, you've been out for quite a while. Neji-san's seal has already been removed. Though it was touch and go for a few minutes, everything turned out fine. He's sleeping the effects of the seal off. And, what about that girl? Sora asked. Chiraku's smile dropped, they're examining her seal as we speak. X equals. This is really complicated, Jiraiya sighed as he took in the bare skin of Tayuya's left shoulder, where her mark was. Having used a seal to bring out the old one, Orochimaru's handiwork was quite a monstrosity. I can make out a servitude seal, a seal to cause pain or death depending on the user, and this one here causes a drug to enter the body, that explains the withdrawal she went through a few months ago. But what's this? Naruto was also peering at the mark, it says, nature, but I don't understand the meaning. You think this one has something to do with the change she goes through? Nature, huh? Jiraiya thought for a moment, then something seemed to click. Tayuya, did the chakra from your seal come for you, or was it drawn to you? Tayuya, who was blushing profusely from the attention she was getting from both of them, growled, fuck if I know, I just used the damn thing to get the job done. Now would you hurry up? This is fucking embarrassing. Naruto grinned at her, what was that you were saying last night about? Suck it, Blondie, Tayuya flipped him the bird. Jiraiya grinned at their antics and sighed, well, I think the theory about this thing using natural chakra is pretty solid. That would explain the demon-like transformations of the marked Otonin. He said, then frowned, this is not going to be easy, a seal like this one is dangerous, especially if it draws in natural chakra like that. It could kill her, or maybe cause her to turn to stone if it overloads her system. Naruto nodded, I'm not so sure what this natural chakra stuff is, pervy sage, but you're right about this being dangerous. And that seal is layered all the way down. I'll have to do this in layers, just like the seal. Tayuya looked back at him, what the fuck's that mean? Naruto grinned and placed his hand on her shoulder, it means that the seal is just a bunch of other seals layered on top of one another, and the most dangerous one is at that bottom, and I've gotta go from top to bottom if I wanna do this right. Couldn't have said it better myself, Jiraiya nodded, stepping away from them, I'll leave you two alone, good luck, Gakis. Tayuya watched him go with an eyebrow raised, what the fuck's his problem? She asked, looking back at the blonde. How come he's leaving? Naruto blushed. Well, you see, I need a pretty clear shot at the seal to do this, and well, your, kimono, it's in the way. Nodding without a second thought, Tayuya shrugged out of the top, leaving her in her sports bra. Naruto then had to cut the strap of her left shoulder to get a better shot at the seal. Okay, this is gonna take a bit of doing, but we will get this thing off of you, Tayuya-chan, Naruto said confidently, cracking his knuckles, it's gonna hurt like hell, but it won't last long, and we can take breaks. Tayuya smiled at him over her shoulder, you know I trust you, shithead-kun, just, get this thing off me. She shivered, I've always felt so dirty once I got this thing. Naruto grit his teeth over that, alright, that thing's coming off. He started flashing through hand seals, chanting each other their names to focus more, and Tayuya watched as the seals around the room lit up blue in coloration, and sparks started flying off of them around the room. Tayuya gulped loudly in nervousness as the seal grew brighter. Suddenly, Naruto clapped his hands together loudly, and thrust his right palm against her shoulder. Mukuo Fuin. A searing pain shot through her body as she felt a shattering sensation. She yelled out, cursing loudly, and the pain was suddenly gone. Naruto grunted, "That's one down. 3 more to go," Tayuya finished weakly. Naruto started up again, going through the motions faster this time, and hit her again. This time, the pain hit them both as the next seal put up more of a fight. Tayuya nearly screamed in pain as the seal started to come apart slowly, along with Naruto grunts of pain as the chakra exuding from the seal itself tried to enter him. Finally, with one last push, the seal shattered just like the first one. This time, however, Naruto's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the floor, panting heavily. Damn, that snake seriously didn't want anyone breaking that curse mark. He growled, wiping sweat from his brow. Tayuya turned to him, sweat beading her own face. "Yeah, I can feel it," she smiled at him. "I feel better already, it's like. I don't know. I feel free. What's left?" Naruto sighed, taking a rest. "Well, that last one I destroyed was the servitude seal, meaning he can't control you anymore, and before that, it was the drug seal that dulled pain, or heightened senses. The next one's gonna have to be the one that causes pain and death, and finally it's that last natural seal." Tayuya nodded to the tired blonde. "Think you can get the next one off without passing out on me?" Naruto stood on shaky legs but gave her a determined grin. "You better believe I will. I told you we'd get this thing off, and we will." Tayuya nodded and prepared herself for the coming pain as Naruto went through the motions again. But this time, when the seal on his palm struck her shoulder, she did scream, and Kami did she scream. The pain was worse than anything she'd ever felt, even when she'd gotten her legs crushed. The seal shattered almost instantly, however, and took both of them by surprise as the seal gave way. But neither of them knew what would happen from the seal's destruction. The final seal, the one that gathered the needed chakra for the seal's activation, activated. Tayuya felt it long before she knew what was happening. The familiar rush of power coursing through her system, and the feeling of awareness that came with it, right behind the physical changes. As Naruto sat panting, she looked at her hands and began to shake all over as she saw the claws and darkened skin. She reached up, and felt her face, touching one tooth and finding that it had become a fang. Her hands went higher, and higher until she reached the top of her head, and felt the horns. No. This can't be happening, she screamed mentally, turning toward the still recovering blonde. He looked up at her as she turned, and she saw, for that one horrible moment, that his eyes went wide. No! Tayuya screamed and rushed away from him, crashing through the screen doors and pelting into the courtyard. Tayuya! Naruto's voice followed her. Tayuya ignored him, and kept running. Past the startled monks, and straight into the forest. Without thinking, Naruto was after her in a heartbeat, hearing the shouts of the monks, and Jiraiya behind him, but he was too focused on the fleeing girl. Tayuya, wait. Go away. She screamed at him. Stop running from me, damn it. Naruto roared as he took to the trees. What the hell's wrong with you? He growled, and pushed as much wind chakra into his legs as possible for him, and shot forward, catching the girl off guard, and tackling her to the ground. Tayuya fought to get away from him as they tumbled, but the blonde had grip on her that he had no intention of losing. He held her tight against him, even as she beat at his chest, and her horns jabbed at him. He would hold on until she calmed down. Finally, she sobbed, her shoulders shaking with sobs. You fucking idiot. She yelled, burying her face in his chest. Why couldn't you leave me alone? She sobbed against his chest. When I look like this. Her body was shaking as he held her, and reached up to stroke her hair, making her stiffen at his touch. When I met you the first time, after Pervy Sage found you. I thought you had a really cute laugh. He said, smiling against her hair as her sobs stopped. You were loud, mean, and had the foulest mouth I'd heard since meeting the Inuzuka. But I still thought you were prettier than most every girl I'd ever met. Tayuya's face started to heat up from his words. How could he be saying such things? To her of all people. That night at the festival, when we were talking on the pier, you felt so small when I had to carry you back, Naruto went on, still running his fingers over her hair. I knew right then that I wanted to make you smile, no matter what I had to do. And when Raiga nearly killed you, I felt so lost. I couldn't imagine being without you. Tayuya looked up at him with black and gold eyes, tears streaming down her face. Even if I look like this. Naruto's face was calm, and as gentle as it had always been when looking at her. You look beautiful to me, always. He leaned in, catching her by surprise with the gentlest touch of their lips. Tayuya's eyes went wide for a moment as she tried to process what was happening before giving in and letting them close. Well, it seems we caught them at a bad time, didn't we, Itachi-kun? Thank you for watching. Please remember, make sure to like and subscribe, and if you have fanfictions you would like to see on the channel, leave them in the comments, and have a great day.